There is something happening at the Sturgis rally this year that nobody wants to say out loud. Walk the dealer lots in Rapid City. Stand outside the demo rides. Listen to the conversations in the beer tents, the real ones, the quiet ones, after the third round. The men who spent 30 years on 900-pound touring machines, the men whose entire identity was built on big American iron, are trading down. Smaller engines, lighter frames, lower seats. And they are doing it almost in secret, the way a man handles any change he is not ready to explain. Nobody throws a party when he sells the Ultra. There is no ceremony for the day the bagger leaves the garage and something 200 pounds lighter takes its place. It just happens, quietly, one rider at a time, in dealerships all over this country. And here is the thing that makes this bigger than any one man's knees or any one rider's back. This quiet decision, multiplied by hundreds of thousands of riders, is now reshaping the entire motorcycle industry. It is the reason Harley-Davidson is suddenly building small bikes again after 20 years of refusing. It is the reason a half-dead British brand from India is stealing customers in Harley's own backyard. The most powerful force in motorcycling right now is not a company, not a technology, not a tariff. It is a 60-year-old rider being honest with himself. And this is the story of what that honesty is doing to everyone. Start with the evidence, because if you ride, you have already seen it even if you have not named it. The average American motorcyclist is not who he was. Back in 1990, the median age of a rider in this country sat in the low 30s. Today, it sits around 50, and at events like Sturgis, gray hair outnumbers everything else on Main Street. This is the generation that bought the big bikes in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. The touring rigs, the full dressers, the machines that weighed as much as a small car and cost as much as a large one. They rode them hundreds of thousands of miles. They rode them through marriages and careers and across every state line on the map. And now that generation is arriving, together, all at once, at the same conversation with the same mirror. Because here is what a 900-pound motorcycle actually demands from a human body. It demands knees that can hold it upright at a stoplight on a cambered road. It demands a back that can muscle it off the side stand and walk it backward out of a parking spot. It demands hips and shoulders that can catch 450 pounds of lean when a gust or a gravel patch shifts the balance at walking speed. At 35, you never think about any of this. The bike is just the bike. At 55, you think about it in certain parking lots. At 65, you think about it every single time, and the thinking is the tell. Ask any veteran rider and he will say the same thing. The road was never the problem. Big bikes are magnificent at 70 miles an hour. It is the first 5 feet and the last 5 feet, the duck walk, the U-turn, the incline start, the moment at the gas pump. That is where the weight lives. That is where the doubt lives. And doubt on a motorcycle is the one passenger you cannot afford to carry. So the choice arrives, and it is a brutal one, because for this generation, it was never framed as a choice at all. It was framed as a verdict. Ride the big bike, or admit you are done. For decades, American motorcycle culture, and let us be honest, Harley-Davidson's own marketing, built a ladder with only one direction. You started small, you moved up, and moving up was the whole point. Bigger engine, bigger fairing, bigger presence. The big bike was the destination, the proof, the reward for a life of work. The industry spent 40 years teaching these men that displacement was dignity. So what happens when the body starts negotiating? For a long time, the answer was grim. Riders did not downsize. They quit. They parked the bagger in the garage, rode it less each summer, told themselves next year, and one spring the battery tender came off and the bike went up for sale, and that was the end of a 40-year riding life. Not because the love was gone, because the ladder only went up and the man could no longer climb. Except now, something has changed, and this is the quiet revolution at the center of this story. This generation of riders, the biggest, most stubborn, most brand-loyal generation in the history of American motorcycling, is refusing the verdict. Instead of quitting, they are rewriting the ladder. And you can watch it happening in the sales numbers of every company smart enough to notice. Look at what these riders are actually buying. Middleweight cruisers with seat heights their hips can live with. Machines in the 400 to 700 pound range instead of 900. Bikes with modest, usable power instead of trophy power. Royal Enfield, a brand most American riders would not have crossed the street for 20 years ago, has built one of the fastest rising presences in the American market almost entirely on this exact rider, the lifelong big bike man who test rides a simple 650 twin as a joke and comes back from the ride not laughing. Their bikes are affordable, light, low, and honest, and dealer after dealer will tell you the same story. The trade-in on the floor is wearing a bar and shield. Meanwhile, the Japanese manufacturers, who never stopped building sensible middleweights, are suddenly finding that the customer for a lighter 700-pound cruiser is not a beginner at all. He has 40 years of riding behind him and a very clear idea of what he wants. And then there is Milwaukee. Because if you want proof that the quiet downsizing of the American rider is real, do not take my word for it. Look at what Harley-Davidson itself is doing right now, this year, in public. After 2 decades of killing its small bikes, pushing prices north, and betting everything on heavyweight touring machines, Harley has thrown the strategy in reverse. A smaller, lighter machine called the Sprint, priced for mortals, coming this year. The Sportster, the classic accessible Harley, returning to the lineup. A stripped, lower, simpler bobber unveiled at this very rally, deliberately shorn of weight and complication. The company line talks about attracting new and younger riders, and sure, that is part of it. But walk any Harley dealership and look at who is actually swinging a leg over the smaller machines on the floor. It is not kids. It is men with 30-year riding resumes and titanium in their joints, quietly asking the salesman what the light one weighs. Harley is not just reaching down market for the young. Whether it says so or not, it is building the landing zone for its own aging faithful. The company spent 40 years selling these men the ladder up. It will spend the next 10 selling them the ladder down. And the second ladder might save it. Now, I know exactly what some of you are feeling right now, because it is the feeling this entire subject swims in. Loss. The sense that downsizing is defeat with better marketing. That trading the big twin for something smaller is the first paragraph of a eulogy. And I am not going to insult you by pretending that feeling is not real, because both things are true here. And this is where we have to be honest in both directions at once. Yes, downsizing is a loss. It is the body overruling the heart. It is admitting that the machine you dreamed about at 30, worked for at 40, and crossed the country on at 50 has become, at 65, a physics problem you can no longer reliably solve. Nobody hands over the keys to that dream without grief. The big bike was never just transportation. It was proof of a certain kind of life, and letting it go is letting go of the man who earned it. Anyone who tells you that is easy has never loved a machine. But hold the other truth, because it is just as real and a great deal less spoken. Every rider who actually makes the switch reports some version of the same strange discovery. They ride more, not less. More. The lighter bike comes out of the garage for the errand, the evening loop, the ride that the big bike's weight had quietly talked them out of. The 200-mile day that had become an ordeal becomes a pleasure again. The parking lot stops being enemy territory. The doubt gets off the back seat. And somewhere in the first 1,000 miles, a realization lands that nobody saw coming. This is what riding felt like at the beginning. Light, flickable, effortless, a little loud, a little quick, and completely absorbing. Here is the secret. The latter never told them. The original riding experience, the one that hooked them at 19, happened on a small bike. The bobbers that started this whole culture in the 1940s were stripped-down lightweights, built by men who removed weight on purpose because weight was the enemy of the experience. The first Sportsters, the machines that defined American cool in the 50s and 60s, were small, raw, and simple. Somewhere across the decades, the industry convinced everyone that more bike meant more riding. The riders now discovering the opposite are not abandoning the tradition. They are, without meaning to, riding straight back to its source. The downsize is not the end of the road. It is the road finally circling home. And there is one more layer, the biggest one, the one that turns a personal choice into an industry earthquake. The rest of the planet has been living this truth the entire time. Step outside North America, and the motorcycle world flips upside down. Across Asia, across Latin America, across most of Europe, the standard motorcycle is small, light, and affordable. And it always has been. Machines of modest displacement move billions of human beings every single day, and nobody over there considers them lesser. They consider them motorcycles. America was the outlier, the one market where a starter bike was treated as an apology and a heavyweight was treated as a birthright. And that outlier status was not an accident. It was manufactured, decade by decade, by an industry that made its fattest margins on its heaviest machines. The aging American rider, quietly buying the smaller bike his body asked for, is not leaving the mainstream of motorcycling. He is joining it. The rest of the world is not catching up to America. America, one honest 60-year-old at a time, is catching up to the rest of the world. So put the whole picture together and look at what this quiet migration has already set in motion. Harley-Davidson, reversing 20 years of strategy and rebuilding its small bike lineup with its own survival plan leaning on affordable machines. Royal Enfield, rising from an afterthought to a genuine force in the American market on the strength of exactly this rider. The Japanese brands, rediscovering that their middleweights have a second audience they never marketed to. Dealers, relearning how to sell lightness after a generation of selling mass. An entire industry pivoting around a decision that most of the men making it have never even announced to their friends. That is the punchline of this whole story. The most disruptive force in American motorcycling did not come from a boardroom, a startup, or a spec sheet. It came from 500,000 private conversations between a rider and his own body, settled one at a time, in favor of the road. Because that is the part the eulogy crowd gets wrong. The man trading down is not quitting. Quitting was the old outcome, the one the latter forced. This is the opposite of quitting. This is a rider looking at the choice the industry gave him: ride the monster or hang it up, and refusing both. He is negotiating a third option that keeps him on the road into his 70s and beyond, and he is dragging the entire market along behind him, whether it likes it or not. The same generation that built the big bike era is now, in its final act, dismantling it, not out of rebellion, but out of the simple, stubborn refusal to stop riding. They were told the bike made the rider. They are proving, one downsize at a time, that it was always the other way around. A lighter machine in the garage, a longer season on the road. The same wind, the same hills, the same reasons, carried on 200 fewer pounds. The dream did not shrink. It just finally stopped weighing so much. So here is what I want to know from the riders who have actually stood at this crossroads, and I know a lot of you watching have. If you made the switch, what finally tipped you, and what surprised you on the other side? And if you are still on the big bike, holding the line, what would it take? I personally think the smartest riders at Sturgis this week are not the ones on the biggest machines. They are the ones who will still be riding to this rally in 10 years, whatever they arrive on. But this is one of those stories where the comments will be wiser than the video, because every one of you has a body, a bike, and a mirror, and that conversation belongs to you. Tell me where yours landed. I will be down there reading every one.